"Daddy, can I buy that dog?" Her request froze the police officer's heart. The animal was dirty, injured, and had a frightening look, but there was something different about him. They took him home without imagining the danger it would bring. Danzu. Later, the dog would guide them to a place they could never have imagined being. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll hear in your life. The sun was setting on the horizon of the small town of Golden Ridge, painting the sky with orange hues that contrasted with the lush green of the surrounding mountains. Michael Thompson drove slowly along the dirt road that led to his ranch on the outskirts of town. Beside him in the passenger seat, his 10-year-old daughter Emily stared out the window with a distant expression. The silence between father and daughter had become common since Sarah, Emily's mother, had decided to leave to pursue her dreams in the capital, leaving behind a devastated family and a broken marriage. Michael was the sheriff in town, respected by everyone for his integrity and dedication. However, at home he felt like a complete failure. He couldn't connect with his daughter, who day after day retreated further into her own world. He tried to compensate for her mother's absence, but it seemed his attempts only widened the gap between them. "Is everything okay, Emily?" he asked, casting a quick glance at the girl. "Yes, Dad," she replied without taking her eyes off the window. Michael sighed. It was always like this. Short answers, distant looks. He felt he was losing his daughter a little more each day. As they reached the curve that preceded the entrance to the ranch, something caught Emily's attention. She straightened up in her seat and pointed to the shoulder of the road. "Dad, look. Over there." Michael slowed down and saw a shabby-looking man pulling a dog by an improvised rope. The animal, a German shepherd with an imposing stature despite its thinness, was walking with difficulty. Even from a distance, it was possible to see marks on its body and an expression of profound sadness in its eyes. "We'd better keep going." "Emily, we don't know who that man is," Michael said, concerned. "Please, Dad. The dog looks like it's hurt," insisted Emily, with more emotion in her voice than Michael had heard in months. Something in his daughter's pleading look made him stop. The car. They got out and approached cautiously. Up close, the animal's condition was even worse. Its fur was tangled and dirty, with patches in some areas that revealed old scars. The man leading it had small, restless eyes and gave off a strong smell of alcohol. "Good afternoon," greeted Michael, instinctively bringing his hand near his waist where he would normally carry his gun when on duty. "Is everything all right with the dog?" "This trash?" replied the man with a harsh laugh. "It's a worthless monster. I've been trying to get rid of it for days. If you want it, take it for a few dollars. Otherwise, I'm going to have to abandon it right here." Emily approached the animal, ignoring her father's silent warning to keep her distance. Surprisingly, the dog, which seconds before had seemed tense and alert, visibly relaxed when the girl approached, its eyes, a deep amber, fixed on hers with a disconcerting intensity. "It's recognizing you," mumbled the man, appearing momentarily uncomfortable. "Weird. This animal was never like this with anyone." Emily knelt in front of the animal. "What's his name?" "Name?" The man laughed again. "This type of dog doesn't have a name, girl. They're tools, not pets." Michael observed the scene with a growing feeling of unease. There was something strange about the situation, something he couldn't quite define. The dog, despite its debilitated condition, maintained an attentive, almost vigilant posture. Its intelligent eyes moved between Emily, Michael, and the man, as if it were assessing the situation. "How much do you want for him?" asked Michael, surprising himself. The man seemed equally surprised but quickly named a price. Michael paid without negotiating, ignoring the satisfied smile that formed on the man's face. As soon as the money changed hands, he handed the rope to Emily and quickly walked away, disappearing around the bend in the road. "Dad, you bought him," exclaimed Emily, with the first genuine smile Michael had seen on her face in a long time. "It seems I did," he answered, still uncertain about the impulse that had led him to that decision. "But we don't know anything about this dog, Emily. He could be dangerous. He could be sick." "He's not dangerous," the girl asserted with conviction, gently caressing the animal's head, which closed its eyes at her touch. "Look how gentle he is." Michael observed the interaction with a mixture of concern and fascination. The animal, which moments before had seemed like a worthless monster, in the words of its former owner, now behaved with surprising docility with his daughter. "Let's take him home then," he finally decided, "but he stays in the yard until we know more about him, deal?" Emily nodded, radiant. Carefully, she helped the dog climb into the back of the pickup truck. During the entire journey to the ranch, she turned around several times to check on the animal through the rear window, as if afraid it might disappear at any moment. When they arrived home, Emily immediately assumed responsibility for the new member of the family. She filled a large basin with warm water and with infinite patience began to bathe the dog in the yard. Michael watched her through the kitchen window, amazed at the transformation happening before his eyes, not just in the animal, which gradually revealed lighter fur under the layer of dirt, but especially in his daughter, who seemed to have awakened from a long torpor. Under the dirt and knots, the animal's body revealed more scars than Michael would have liked to see. A deep groove ran around its neck, evidently the result of years wearing a collar or chain that was too tight. Its prominent ribs revealed long periods of hunger, and one of its front paws appeared to have been broken in the past and poorly healed. "How could anyone do this to an animal?" murmured Emily, silent tears running down her face as she dried the dog with an old towel. Michael had no answer. In his years as sheriff, he had witnessed human cruelty in many different forms, but it never ceased to surprise him. After the bath, Emily improvised a bed for the dog on the porch, using old blankets. She brought fresh water and a bowl with kibble they had bought for Peanut, the neighbor's poodle that occasionally stayed under their care. The German shepherd ate with surprising good manners, without showing the voracity that would be expected from a hungry animal. "We'll call him Guardian," decided Emily, as she stroked the still damp fur of the dog, "because I feel like he came to protect us." Michael smiled at the choice of name, but couldn't completely shake the feeling that there was more to this story. The dog's behavior was disconcerting, the way it remained alert even when apparently relaxed, how its eyes seemed to assess every movement, every sound. It wasn't the behavior of an ordinary animal, much less one that had been mistreated. That night, Michael had difficulty sleeping. Unanswered questions roamed his mind. Where did this dog come from? Why would an animal with clear evidence of advanced training be in the hands of a man like that? And why did he feel that, by bringing Guardian home, he had inadvertently crossed an invisible line? Outside on the porch, Guardian remained awake, his attentive eyes fixed on the darkness that surrounded the small ranch, as if waiting for something, or someone, that might appear at any moment. Guardian's first night at the Thompson Ranch marked the beginning of a silent transformation in the family. Emily woke up earlier than usual, anxious to see her new friend. She found him exactly where she had left him, lying on the improvised mattress, but with his eyes open and alert, as if he hadn't slept. Upon seeing her, the dog stood up with difficulty, limping slightly on his hind leg. "Good morning, Guardian," she whispered, kneeling to hug him. The animal responded with a gentle touch of his muzzle on her face, a gesture so gentle that it brought tears to the girl's eyes. Michael observed the scene from the kitchen door, a cup of coffee in his hands and his heart tight with emotion. It had been so long since he had seen his daughter show affection like this. Since Sarah had left, Emily had built walls around herself, walls that even he couldn't penetrate. However, it had taken just one day with that mistreated dog for something to start changing. "He needs to go to the vet," said Michael, approaching cautiously. He still didn't fully trust the animal, despite its exemplary behavior the night before. "After breakfast, we can take him to Dr. Elizabeth's clinic." Dr. Elizabeth. Foster was one of the few friends Michael maintained in town. A respected veterinarian and owner of the only animal clinic in Golden Ridge, she had been a fundamental support when Sarah left, offering not only advice on how to handle the situation, but also making herself available to take care of Emily. When Michael's work as sheriff required long hours, after a breakfast in which Emily barely touched her food, so anxious was she to take care of Guardian, The three of them set off for the veterinary clinic. On the way, Michael noticed how the dog behaved in the back seat of the car, sitting upright, observing the landscape with attention, without the agitation common in other animals. There was something almost military in its posture. The clinic was quiet that Saturday morning. Dr. Elizabeth received them personally, her round face opening into a warm smile upon seeing Emily. The smile faltered slightly when her eyes fell on Guardian. "And who do we have here?" she asked, approaching with professional caution. "It's Guardian," answered Emily proudly. "We found him yesterday. Someone was mistreating him. Look at the marks." Dr. Elizabeth examined the dog with growing care, her face becoming more serious with each discovery. Michael observed his friend, noticing how she occasionally exchanged significant looks with her assistant, Jessica, who noted everything on a clipboard. "This is a very special dog, Emily," the veterinarian finally said, after concluding the examination. "He's a purebred German Shepherd, probably from a working line. Look at the body structure, the posture, the attention. This is not an ordinary dog." "What do you mean?" asked Michael, intrigued. Dr. Elizabeth hesitated, looking from Michael to Emily, as if assessing how much she should reveal in front of the girl. "Why don't you take Emily to see our rescued puppies in the kennel at the back, Jessica? I'm sure she'll love it." As soon as Emily left the room, accompanied by the assistant and Guardian, who followed the girl like a protective shadow, Elizabeth closed the door and faced Michael with a serious expression. "Michael, this dog, he has clear signs of professional training. The scars, the behavior, the way he carries himself. He seems like a working dog, possibly police or military." Michael frowned. How would a police dog end up in the hands of that man? "That's what worries me," replied Elizabeth, lowering her voice. "I found something when I was examining him. Come with me." She led Michael to a small X-ray room where she showed him the image she had captured during the examination. "See this here under the skin at the back of the neck? It's a microchip, but it's not the common type we use for identification. It's larger, more sophisticated." Michael leaned in to examine the image more closely, feeling a growing uneasiness. "What kind of microchip would that be?" "I'm not sure," admitted Elizabeth, "but I've seen something similar in a case a few years ago. A dog that was brought here had a similar device. It was part of an experimental dog training program for special operations." The words hung in the air for a few seconds, laden with implications. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. If Guardian was really part of some special program, how had he ended up in the hands of that man on the road? And more importantly, would someone be looking for him? "Is there a way to discover the origin of this microchip?" he finally asked. "I can try," answered Elizabeth. "I have some contacts in the Federal Department of Animal Control who might be able to help. But this will take time, and I need to warn you, Michael. If this dog is really what I'm thinking, you could be getting involved in something dangerous." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of barking and laughter coming from the kennel. When they opened the door, they found Emily kneeling on the floor, surrounded by rescued puppies, with Guardian sitting patiently by her side, observing everything with vigilant attention. "Look, Dad! They loved Guardian," exclaimed Emily, radiant. "And that little puppy over there," Zach was scared, but Guardian went over and stayed by his side until he calmed down. "I've never seen such an intelligent dog." Michael exchanged a worried look with Elizabeth. The intelligence and unusual behavior of Guardian only confirmed the veterinarian's suspicions. There was much more to this dog than appeared. On the way back home, Michael drove in silence, absorbed in thought. Emily chatted animatedly in the back seat with Guardian, telling him stories about the ranch and the animals they might see there. The ducks in the lake, the neighbors' chickens, the birds that came to eat the fruit from the trees. Upon arriving, Michael decided he needed to investigate more about Guardian's past. Taking advantage of Emily being busy showing the property to the dog, he went to his office and called an old colleague from the police academy, now working in the capital. "Charlie, it's Michael. I need a favor. I've got a dog here, a German Shepherd, possibly with advanced training. It has an unconventional microchip implanted. Can you check if there are any records of dogs missing from special units?" While waiting for Charlie's response, who promised to discreetly seek information, Michael began to observe Guardian with different eyes. He noticed how the dog patrolled the perimeter of the ranch at regular intervals, how his ears perked up at the slightest suspicious sound, how he always positioned himself between Emily and any potential threat, even if it was just the mailman passing on the road. The next morning, an incident confirmed his suspicions about Guardian's special nature. Emily was playing in the garden when the neighbor's dog, a Doberman known for its aggression, managed to escape and invaded the property, running toward the girl with threatening barks. Before Michael could react, Guardian was already there, positioning himself between Emily and the intruder. He didn't attack, didn't show aggression, just stood firm, with a posture that emanated authority. The Doberman, surprisingly, stopped in its advance, lowered its head and slowly backed away, as if recognizing a superior hierarchy. "Did you see that, Dad?" asked Emily, amazed when Michael ran to her. Guardian didn't even need to bark. He just looked at Rex and he obeyed. Michael nodded, impressed and increasingly convinced that Guardian was not a simple pet. His sheriff's intuition told him there was a complex story behind those attentive amber eyes, a story that could bring both answers and dangers. That same night, while Emily slept, Michael was awakened by a low, constant growl. Guardian, who had insisted on sleeping at the foot of the girl's bed despite Michael's attempts to keep him on the porch, was now at the door of the room, his body tense, the hair on his neck raised. His eyes fixed on the window seemed to see something in the darkness that Michael couldn't discern. With silent movements, the sheriff took his gun from the safe beside the bed and approached the window. For a moment, he thought he saw a shadow moving among the trees, but it could have been just the wind stirring the branches. Guardian, however, remained on alert, the growl now almost inaudible, as if he were containing the sound so as not to alarm the house. "What is it, boy? What are you seeing?" whispered Michael, kneeling beside the dog and stroking his head. Guardian looked at him briefly, then went back to staring at the darkness outside. At that moment, Michael had the strange sensation that the animal was trying to communicate something important, something beyond a simple warning of danger. The next morning, Michael woke to the sound of laughter coming from the yard. He got up quickly and, looking through the window, saw Emily running across the lawn with Guardian by her side. The dog, despite its still precarious physical condition, accompanied the girl with evident pleasure, always keeping a watchful eye on the perimeter of the property. The transformation in his daughter was so remarkable that Michael could hardly believe it. It was as if the void left by Sarah's departure was finally beginning to be filled. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Charlie, his contact. "In the capital. Michael, I found some information about that dog you mentioned," he said, his voice laden with concern. "But you're not going to like what I discovered." Michael closed the bedroom door, moving away from the window so that Emily couldn't see him. "I'm listening." 3 years ago, the K-9 unit of the Federal Police implemented an experimental, advanced training program for special operations dogs. It was called Project Sentinel. These dogs received training that went far beyond the conventional, tracking in extreme conditions, recognition of complex patterns, even a rudimentary form of independent decision-making. Michael felt his mouth go dry. "And Guardian was part of this program?" "From what you described to me and the type of microchip, it's very likely, especially if he has scars on his neck and a poorly healed paw. I'm sending you the file of one of the dogs that disappeared about a year ago. His name in the program was Atlas." Michael's cell phone vibrated with the arrival of the message. When he opened the attached file, his heart raced. The photo showed an imposing German shepherd with the same coloration and structure as Guardian, although much healthier and stronger. What caught his attention most, however, was a distinctive mark on the side of the muzzle. A small, irregular white spot, exactly like the one Guardian had. "My God," murmured Michael. "It's him." "There's more," continued Charlie. "The program was officially shut down 6 months ago due to ethical controversies about the training methods and some incidents, but at least 3 of the dogs were never recovered. Atlas is one of them." "Who was behind this project?" A heavy silence settled on the line before Charlie answered. "This is the most concerning part, Michael. The director of the program was Colonel Augustus Vance. The name fell like a bomb. Colonel Vance was a well-known figure in police circles, a man of controversial methods and powerful connections. Rumors about his involvement in clandestine operations had been circulating for years, but no one had ever managed to prove anything against him. "And there's something else you should know," added Charlie, lowering his voice even more. "I have information that at least one former instructor from the program is looking for these missing dogs. Not officially, you understand, and not necessarily to return them to the authorities." Michael thanked him for the information and hung up, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. What had begun as a simple act of compassion in rescuing a mistreated dog had transformed into something potentially dangerous. Guardian, or Atlas as he was previously called, was not just an abandoned dog. He was a highly trained animal, possibly involved in a secret program, and now there could be dangerous people looking for him. As he reflected on what to do, his gaze met Guardian's through the window. The dog had stopped playing with Emily and was looking directly at him, as if he knew exactly what Michael had just discovered. There was an intelligence in those amber eyes that transcended common understanding of canine cognition. At that moment, Michael made his decision. It didn't matter what Guardian's past was or who might be looking for him. The dog was now part of his family, and he would do whatever was necessary to protect him, and by extension, protect his daughter, who was finally smiling again. Following days passed with an apparent tranquility, Guardian continued to recover his health under Emily's attentive care and regular visits to Dr. Elizabeth's clinic. His fur gained shine, the wounds healed, and even his injured paw seemed to bother him less. But the most remarkable thing was his integration into the family routine. He accompanied Emily in all her activities, remained vigilant when Michael left for work, and at night he strategically lay between the door of the girl's room and the entrance to the house. On a particularly hot afternoon, while Emily was doing her homework on the porch under Guardian's silent supervision, Michael received an unexpected visit. Anthony Miller, the new deputy mayor of Golden Ridge, appeared at his door with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sheriff Thompson, I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said, extending his hand. "I just came by to get to know the public employees of our town better." Michael invited him in, noticing how Guardian immediately went on alert, his eyes fixed on the visitor, his body tense. Emily, perceiving the change in the dog's behavior, approached him and placed a reassuring hand on his back. "Beautiful animal," commented Miller, observing Guardian with an interest that seemed excessive. "Pure German Shepherd, isn't it? Where did you get him?" "It was a rescue," Michael replied vaguely. "We found him abandoned on the road." "Interesting. You know, I had a very similar dog when I worked in the capital," continued Miller, without taking his eyes off Guardian. "They are impressive animals, aren't they? So intelligent, so loyal. Sometimes it almost seems like they understand everything we say." The conversation continued with trivial matters about the town's administration, but Michael couldn't shake the feeling that the visit had a hidden purpose. When Miller finally said goodbye, he cast one last look at Guardian. "You know, Sheriff, if you need help with that dog, maybe someone who understands the breed better, I know people who could assist you. I have contacts in the capital who work with specialized training." "I appreciate the offer," replied Michael with a forced smile, "but we're adapting well." As soon as Miller's car disappeared down the road, Michael turned to Emily and Guardian. The dog still kept his eyes fixed in the direction the visitor had left, a low growl vibrating in his chest. "He didn't like that man," observed Emily. "And neither did I." He looked at Guardian in a strange way. Michael nodded, patting his daughter's head. The girl's intuition, as always, was sharp. There was something suspicious about Anthony Miller and his sudden interest in Guardian. Could it be possible that he had some connection to Project Sentinel, or with the people who would be looking for the missing dogs? That night, Michael went to his office and opened his laptop. He needed to find out more about Anthony Miller and his past before coming to Golden Ridge. The initial research revealed nothing suspicious: a degree in public administration, a career in civil service in the capital, a recent appointment to the deputy mayor position in the small town. But when Michael deepened his search, he found something intriguing. An old photo from a military ceremony where Miller appeared in the background. In the front row of the image, standing out for his imposing posture, was Colonel Augustus Vance. The discovery left Michael uneasy. It could be a coincidence, but his years as sheriff had taught him to be suspicious of coincidences. He needed more information, and he knew exactly where to get it. The next morning, he left Emily in the care of Mrs. Martha, a trusted neighbor, and drove to the capital. Charlie met him in a discreet cafe, away from prying eyes. "I need to know more about Project Sentinel," said Michael without preamble, "and about any connection Anthony Miller might have with it." Charlie sighed, looking nervously around before answering. "Michael, you're messing with dangerous people. Colonel, Vance has protection in the highest echelons. And this Miller guy, I made some inquiries after you called me. He was an administrative employee of the program responsible for logistics. If he's in Golden Ridge now, it's not by chance." "What really happened for the program to be shut down?" Charlie hesitated, as if weighing how much he could reveal. "Officially, ethical issues and budget, but behind the scenes, there were rumors that some of the dogs began to develop unpredictable behaviors. The training was so intense, so advanced, that they began to demonstrate a kind of autonomy. One of the instructors was seriously injured when he tried to discipline one of the animals. Guardian would never hurt anyone without reason," defended Michael, surprising himself with the conviction in his own voice. In just a few weeks, he had developed a deep trust in the animal. "Maybe not," agreed Charlie. "But think about it, Michael. These dogs were trained for extreme situations, to make their own decisions in the field. What happens when that training is combined with mistreatment? When they begin to question the authority of their handlers?" The question hung in the air, laden with disturbing implications. Michael remembered Guardian's behavior, how he seemed to assess each situation, each person who approached Emily. It wasn't the instinctive behavior of a common protective dog. It was something more calculated, more deliberate. On the way back to Golden Ridge, Michael couldn't stop thinking about what he had discovered. If Anthony Miller was really connected to Project Sentinel and now showed interest in Guardian, it meant they were in danger. But at the same time, he couldn't simply take his suspicions to the authorities, not without concrete evidence and not when powerful people like Colonel Vance might be involved. Upon arriving home, he found Emily playing in the yard with Guardian. The dog seemed more alert than normal, his eyes constantly checking the surroundings. When Michael got out of the car, Guardian approached him and placed a paw on his knee as if trying to communicate something. "What is it, boy?" asked Michael, kneeling to be at eye level with the animal. Guardian looked at him intently, then turned his head toward the woods that surrounded the property. He repeated the movement several times until Michael understood. The dog wanted to show him something. "Emily, stay with Mrs. Martha a bit longer," instructed Michael. "I'm going to take a walk with Guardian." "But Dad, it's important, honey. I promise we won't be long." Reluctantly, Emily obeyed. As soon as she entered the neighbor's house, Guardian began to walk determinedly toward the woods, occasionally looking back to make sure Michael was following him. The sheriff instinctively brought his hand to his waist, where he carried his gun. Something told him he was about to discover an important secret. The path through the woods became more difficult as they advanced. Guardian moved with determination, occasionally stopping to check if Michael was still following him. The sheriff watched with fascination how the animal moved with growing confidence, as if the territory brought back dormant memories and skills. After about 20 minutes of walking, they reached a small clearing where the remains of an abandoned building rose among the vegetation. "What is this place?" murmured Michael, more to himself than expecting an answer. Guardian advanced to the structure and began to sniff intensely at the cracked concrete floor. With precise movements, the dog went to a specific point and began to dig with his front paws. Michael approached, curious, and knelt beside the animal. After a few moments of determined excavation, something metallic reflected the sunlight. Michael pushed away more dirt and discovered a small metal box, the type used to store important documents. With slightly trembling hands, he opened the box. Inside, he found a flash drive, a set of laminated documents, and, surprisingly, a military collar with an identification. Atlas Project Sentinel. Michael felt his heart race. It was the definitive confirmation that Guardian was indeed Atlas, one of the missing dogs from the secret program. Quickly leafing through the documents, Michael discovered something even more alarming. Detailed reports on the advanced training of the dogs, including methods that bordered on cruelty, signed by Colonel Vance and several other officers, including Anthony Miller. But what really caught his attention was a list of locations in Golden Ridge, with precise coordinates and cryptic annotations. "This is a network of clandestine facilities," whispered Michael, understanding beginning to form. "They were using our town as a base for secret operations?" Guardian let out a low whine, almost as if confirming Michael's suspicion. His intelligent eyes fixed on the documents, then returned to the sheriff's face, establishing a silent communication that transcended words. "You brought us here on purpose," realized Michael, a new admiration for the animal growing in his chest. "For you knew this was here." The revelation was interrupted by a distant sound of breaking branches. Guardian immediately went on alert, the hair on his neck raised, a low growl forming in his throat. Michael quickly put the documents and the flash drive in his jacket pocket and prepared to return to the ranch. He had enough information to start a formal investigation, but he would need support. This was not something he could face alone. On the way back, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the implications of what he had discovered. If Project Sentinel had established clandestine operations in Golden Ridge, and if Anthony Miller was involved, it would explain his sudden interest in Guardian. The dog was not just a valuable asset for his training, he was a witness, perhaps the only one who could lead authorities to concrete evidence of illegal activities. As they approached the edge of the woods, Guardian suddenly stopped, his body tense like a violin string about to break. Michael followed his gaze and felt his blood freeze in his veins. Standing near his pickup truck was Anthony Miller, talking to Mrs. Martha, and beside him, holding the neighbor's hand, was Emily. Michael quickly assessed the situation. He couldn't simply confront Miller there, not without putting Emily and Mrs. Martha at risk. At the same time, he couldn't allow Miller to realize that he had discovered something. Taking a deep breath to calm his racing heart, he gestured for Guardian to follow him and walked casually out of the woods. "Anthony, what a surprise," he greeted, forcing a smile. "Come to pay us another visit?" Miller turned with an equally false smile. "Sheriff Thompson, what a coincidence. I was passing by to discuss some deputy mayor matters and thought I'd see how you're adapting with the dog." "Dad, Mr. Miller said he knows people who can help train Guardian," said Emily innocently. "He said he knows special trainers from the capital." Michael felt a chill run down his spine. Miller was moving faster than he had imagined. "Is that so? How kind of you, Anthony. But as I said before, we're adapting well." Miller maintained his smile, but his eyes hardened slightly. "It's a sincere offer, Sheriff. Dogs like this." He made a gesture toward Guardian, who remained rigidly beside Michael, his eyes fixed on the visitor. "Are exceptional animals. It would be a shame not to develop all their potential." "I'll think about it," replied Michael, placing a protective hand on Emily's shoulder. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we need to prepare dinner." Something in Michael's tone must have alerted Miller that his approach wasn't working. With a brief nod, he said goodbye and got into his car. Before leaving, he cast one last look at Guardian, a look that contained both recognition and threat. As soon as the car disappeared down the road, Michael led Emily and Guardian inside the house and locked all the doors. He needed to act quickly. Miller would certainly return, and next time he might not be alone. "Emily, we need to take a trip," he announced, trying to keep his voice calm so as not to frighten his daughter. "We're going to spend a few days at Aunt Elizabeth's house in the capital." "Why? What happened, Dad?" asked Emily, her sharp intuition catching the tension in her father's voice. Michael hesitated. Emily was just a child, but she had demonstrated surprising maturity since Guardian had entered their lives. Perhaps she deserved to know part of the truth. "We discovered something important about Guardian's past," he explained, kneeling to be at eye level with his daughter. "He's not an ordinary dog, Emily. He was trained for special work, and there are people who might want to take him back." Emily's eyes widened with fear, and she instinctively put her arms around Guardian's neck. "We're not going to let them take him, are we, Dad?" "No," Michael assured her firmly. "Guardian is part of our family now, but we need to be careful. I'm going to take you to a safe place while I resolve some things." While Emily ran to pack a small bag, Michael called Charlie and in a few words explained the situation. His friend promptly offered help, promising not only a safe place for Emily and Guardian, but also support to initiate a formal investigation into Project Sentinel and its operations in Golden Ridge. In less than an hour, they were on their way to the capital. Michael drove with redoubled attention, constantly checking the rearview mirror to ensure they weren't being followed. In the back seat, Emily slept with her head resting on Guardian's soft fur, who remained vigilant, his eyes attentive to the chaussée. The journey proceeded without incident, and the next morning, Emily and Guardian were installed in Charlie's apartment, while Michael met with representatives of internal affairs and the federal police. The documents found in the box, along with the files contained on the flash drive, provided sufficient evidence to initiate a formal investigation into Colonel Vance, Anthony Miller, and others involved in Project Sentinel. The following weeks were of intense activity. The investigation revealed that the program had not really been shut down, just transferred to clandestine operations, using small towns like Golden Ridge as discrete bases. The missing dogs had not escaped. They had been deliberately removed from official records to be used in unofficial operations, many of them of a questionable nature. Throughout this period, Guardian remained by Emily's side, his constant presence bringing comfort to the girl amid the turbulence. The bond between the two strengthened each day, as if the animal found in the innocence and unconditional love of the child an antidote to the rigid and sometimes cruel training he had received. Finally, after almost 2 months, the arrests were made. Anthony Miller, Colonel Vance, and several other officers involved in the scheme were detained. The clandestine facilities in Golden Ridge were dismantled, and the other dogs from the program, kept in deplorable conditions, were rescued and sent for rehabilitation. Michael received a proposal to lead a new specialized unit in crimes against animals, recognizing his dedication to the case and his unique understanding of the complexity involved in advanced training of dogs for military and police purposes. After careful consideration, he accepted the position, with the condition that he could work from Golden Ridge, keeping his daughter in the environment she knew and loved. On a sunny afternoon, 3 months after the beginning of that entire journey, Michael, Emily, and Guardian returned to the ranch. The property, which for so long had been just a silent house marked by Sarah's absence, now finally seemed like a home. Emily ran across the lawn, followed closely by Guardian, who moved with the elegance and strength he had recovered, his body now healthy, his spirit renewed. Michael was observing the scene with a full heart when the sound of an approaching car caught his attention. A taxi stopped in front of the property, and a familiar figure got out. Sarah, with shorter hair and a more mature face than he remembered, stood for a few moments uncertain. Emily was the first to notice her. The girl froze momentarily, as if not believing what she was seeing. Then, with a cry of joy, she ran toward her mother. Sarah knelt, opening her arms to receive her daughter, tears freely flowing down her face. Michael approached slowly, a storm of conflicting emotions in his chest. Anger at her departure, relief at her return, uncertainty about the future. Guardian walked by his side, as if offering silent support in that difficult moment. "I saw the news," said Sarah when she finally separated from the embrace with Emily. "About what you did, about the case you solved. I realized how wrong I was, Michael. I left seeking something I thought was missing in my life. But what I really needed was here all along." Michael didn't respond immediately. The wounds of separation were still deep, and broken trust would not be easily repaired. But looking at Emily, whose happiness was palpable, and at Guardian, who had taught them so much about loyalty and overcoming, he knew that at least they could try. "A lot has happened since you left," he finally said. "It won't be easy." "I know," replied Sarah, the humility in her voice something new to Michael. "I'm not asking for everything to go back to how it was before. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of your lives again in whatever way is possible." It was Guardian who broke the impasse. The dog, who until then had been observing Sarah with caution, slowly approached her. He sniffed her outstretched hand, and after a moment that seemed eternal, gently touched his muzzle to it as if in acceptance. Emily laughed, delighted with the scene. "See, Mom, Guardian liked you, and he never makes mistakes about people." Sarah looked curiously at the imposing animal. "Guardian, a perfect name for him. He saved our family," explained Emily, with the profound simplicity of children. "He was all hurt when we found him, but even so, he protected us. And now he helped us find you again." Emily's words touched something deep in everyone present. In a way, that dog who had come into their lives so unexpectedly had really been a guardian, not just of their physical safety, but of something much more precious and fragile. The family bonds that, even stretched almost to the breaking point, had never completely broken. That night, as Sarah settled into the guest room, a first cautious step in a long journey of reconciliation, Michael found Emily in her room, kneeling beside Guardian. "You know, Dad," she said thoughtfully, stroking the dog's soft fur, "I think Guardian didn't need to be rescued. I think it was he who rescued us." Michael smiled, moved by his daughter's simple wisdom. "I think you're right, Emily. Sometimes miracles come in the most unexpected forms." Outside, the moon gently illuminated the ranch, casting a silvery light on the new life that was beginning to flourish there. A life built not just on love, but on the understanding that the deepest wounds can heal, that the most important bonds are invisible to the eyes, and that sometimes the most unlikely savior can appear with 4 paws, a brave heart, and eyes that see far beyond what any human could ever see. On the porch, Guardian observed the night with the serenity of one who has finally found his place in the world. His past as Atlas, the special operations dog, had given him extraordinary abilities. But his present as Guardian, the protector of a family in reconstruction, had given him something much more valuable, a purpose born not of training or obligation, but of love freely chosen and offered. And that, more than any command or skill, was what truly mattered. End of the story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Michael, Emily, and Guardian has deeply touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally moving stories. Find it here, clicking to the left. If this narrative about second chances and invisible bonds awakened something in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the strength of the bonds that unite us. Don't miss our upcoming content. We eagerly